The NBA All-Star break is fast approaching, and just like we do every single year, I want to hand out some mid-season awards. Let's talk about it. Now, as always, of every single video, if you want to drop a comment down below, I'll get back to you as quick as I possibly can, whether if you have a different winner or if you just want to extend on what we cover in today's video. Of course, I'll get back to you down below, no matter the comment. But let's kick it off here with the MVP. We're not going to waste any time, and it is a two-man race. It has been for about at least a month and a half now. I know Donovan Mitchell, with the team record of the Cavaliers, had a bit of an argument, right? But as a Cavs fan, he's fallen out of the mix. And Giannis, of course, also had an argument for a period of time. But I think it is a two-man race. It becomes down to Nikola Jokic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We'll start with Shai here because he's averaging 31-6. He's the leader of the best team in the NBA in the Oklahoma City Thunder, despite all the injuries that they've had and all the guys that are in the rotation, out of the rotation. Shai has been that consistent MVP level player for them. He's an all-star starter. He's going to be an all-NBA first-team player. And this is a guy that's, again, averaging 3 stocks. So if you don't know what stocks are, it is steals and blocks combined into one stat. So it just adds those 2 stats together. Basically, Shai has been productive on the defensive end, is what I'm getting at here. He just does it all for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he's the leader of the best team in the NBA. So he has the argument to win his first MVP award. Now, a guy that's not a stranger to the MVP award is Nikola Jokic. He's won 3 of them over the last 5 or so years, and he's averaging 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists a night. He's averaging a triple-double. Now, I understand triple-doubles don't hold the same weight as they did, let's say, in 2016, but that doesn't make them any easier or harder to get. Jokic has been a tremendous player this year. I think he's taking his talent, I'll just say, middling roster, and he's elevating everybody on this roster to higher levels than what the players actually are, right? He's making this team a top 4, top 5 seed in the Western Conference. He's doing all he can. His on-off numbers are absolutely insane, just like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to be fair. At the end of the day, I don't care which way you want to go with this award. I will probably predict that the NBA is going to give the award to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I have no problem with that. But I think Jokic is going to be my midseason MVP just because he's doing just about the same or even more with less. Switch over to the defensive side of the ball with arguably one of the most important awards on teams that want to go farther than where they were projected to be. But for Victor Wembanyama, I think he's just a clear and ahead front runner, right? A guy that's averaging 11 rebounds a game, 5 stocks a game. He's averaging 4 blocks a game. That's almost 2 more than the next highest here in the NBA this season. Now, the team defensive rating is not great, but when you really look at his on-off numbers of when Wemby's on the court, it's a top 10 defense, and he's the leader of that. Now, I will say the runner-up here, you can go with Evan Mobley. I'm a Cavs fan, so I'm being a little bit biased here, but Evan Mobley's not too far behind. 9 rebounds a game, 2.5 stocks. The defense is noticeably better. There we go. When he's on the court, right? And that's no shocker. He's a great defensive player. He's just not on the level of Wemby. Another guy that we could throw in the mix here is the torture chamber. Lou Dort for the Oklahoma City Thunder. There's been games where he's holding all these star players to 10 points, 15 points, when they average almost double that. Most notably, a guy like Donovan Mitchell, of course, struggled against Lou Dort and many other stars around the league. So that would be my top 3. I think Lou Dort, Evan Mobley are good runner-ups. But Wemby's going to take this home, I think, without question. Now, as of this point in time, all the sports books have Cade Cunningham as the favorite to win the Most Improved Player award. I think they've ruined this award. That's well documented over the last few years. We are giving these players that are the number 1, number 2 overall picks that are projected to be franchise-changing players most times, and they're progressing the way that they were projected to be, right? And for some reason, we're giving those guys the Most Improved Player award when we knew they were going to be great. Regardless, now I will say for this award, I'm going to go back to how this award was given out when I was growing up, watching the game, right? 10, 15, 20 years ago. I'm going to give it to guys that are good rotational pieces, maybe some young, some old, and they really took a step up this year statistically and based on the impact also. First guy that came on to mind, right? And a guy that's averaging 19 points, 10 rebounds, 2.5 stocks a game, shooting 50% from the floor, which is very impressive given his volume. Jalen Johnson, a guy that is a two-way wing for the Atlanta Hawks, a team that has been in the playoff mix all season. And again, I think it's just as much because of Trae Young as it is because of Jalen Johnson. So I want to show him some love here. I think he's the traditional pick for most improved player. And honestly, I'm shocked that a lot of the books right now don't have him as a top three, top five guy. I'm still going to show some love to Jalen Johnson. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have an older guy that just recently broke out, and these are nice to see because you usually don't see these guys, close to 30 or into their 30s, really hit their peak at that point in their career. But Norman Powell did it. A guy that had a lot to say in the offseason about Paul George's departure, and he's backed it up, and I even say even more so than we all expected. 24 points a game, 3.5 rebounds, 47% from the field, and 40% from three. And that is very impressive, again, given his role and given the volume that he has on a nightly basis. Norman Powell, again, for the first 35 games of the year when this team didn't have Kawhi Leonard, he was their go-to scorer. And that's a team that has James Harden on there, right? An all-time great, a top three, top four shooting guard of all time. James Harden was, again, the leading scorer of this team. The go-to guy was Norman Powell. So, again, a guy that was perennially a 10 to 15 point guy, shooting up to 24 points per game on a top four, top five seed in the Western Conference, a tougher conference in this argument here. It's a great story. It's a great feel, right? I think the traditional pick here would be a Jalen Johnson, but I guess at this point, I might lean towards Norman Powell as much as I want to see Jalen Johnson win it. For the sixth man of the year, again, both of these guys are playing pivotal parts on top two seeds in their respective conferences. The two seed in the West is the Houston Rockets. Amen Thompson, 13 points, 8 rebounds a night, 2.5 stocks, 55% from the floor, which is impressive because recently he's been getting more volume offensively. Now, the three-point shot is not there, but that has nothing to do really with his overall production. Now, Peyton Pritchard on the other end, 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, Boston Celtics, and he can get lost in the shuffle, right? Because the guy that, is coming off the bench to a star-studded starting 5, again, he gets lost in the mix, but 14 points a game, 46% from the field, 40 from three. And I saw a stat where he's by far and away leading all bench players in three-pointers made, but he's in the top of the league as far as three-pointers made. And again, he's coming off the bench almost every single night for the Boston Celtics. Now, I will say, Amen Thompson's been getting a lot of starts lately. So maybe, if he gets to a point where he doesn't meet the threshold anymore, he might not be in this conversation. But at the end of the day, I think both these guys will play. They won't play enough games to exceed the threshold of what is a starter and what is a six-man, especially Peyton Pritchard. I think the exciting choice here is Amen Thompson because, again, year 2, he's super athletic, super explosive, impacts the game in a lot of ways. I guess more so defensively than Peyton Pritchard. But Peyton Pritchard, again, I think just his overall impact on a night, you can feel it. And when this team needs a spark, despite having all the players that they do have, Peyton Pritchard is constantly there. I think we give the edge to number 11. Now, the Rookie of the Year race, I think, is interesting because it's not the number 1, not the number 2 overall picks. Instead, it's these guys that were taken in the late lottery, and they've played really good roles for their teams. Now, Zach Edey, of course, for the Memphis Grizzlies, starting center there. Kel'el Ware has played some games here in the starting lineup with all this Jimmy drama going on. He's the biggest beneficiary of that, I'll say that, for the Miami Heat, despite Tyler Hero having a tremendous season. And Stephon Castle as well, a guy that has been really good recently, despite the slow start to the season. And the same can be said about Kel'el Ware. Both of these guys in the middle to the right, Ware and Castle, they've had really good stretches over this last month where they're just now having these games where they're putting up 20 and 10, 20 and 7, having these really high games. And just like any other rookie, these guys are having really high highs, really low lows, which comes, again, with these rookies every single year. I think the early pick in the first month and a half, 2 months of the season would have easily been Zach Edey. I think it's now more of a conversation between these 3 guys, and I think it all depends on who finishes the season strong. I think the narrative will carry any of these 3 guys to actually win the award in just a couple months, and honestly, I think that's what it comes down to. But as long as you have one of these 3 as your winner, I think, honestly, it doesn't matter. It can go either way. As of right now, I'm going to predict that Zach Edey is going to take it home. As far as the coach of the year, I think these guys are both tremendous candidates. And I will also throw out there, of course, you always are going to have Joe Mazzulla. You're always going to have Mark Daigneault there for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Daigneault might honestly deserve it the most because of the injuries that he's had to deal with so far this season, and he's still number one in the Western Conference. But I think the two candidates I'm going to put up here are, again, Kenny Atkinson for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I might be biased in that aspect, but I'll explain here in a moment. And Ime Udoka, top two seed for the Houston Rockets, a team that some people expected to, they would have been happy if they just made the playoffs. Ime and this team have shocked everybody. They're a top two seed, so they've had a really, really good start to the season. 30 and 14, again, top two seed in the Western Conference. At this point last year, going into the All-Star break, they were 24 and 30 with Ime coaching. This year, they already have 6 more wins than that, and they're probably going to have at least 36, 37 wins before the All-Star break comes around. So again, they've had a complete 180 of a turnaround compared to last season at this point. Now, at this point last year for the Cavaliers, they were 36 and 17. So good record, right? But different coaching staff. Kenny came in. He's, I guess, added confidence to a lot of these younger players on this team like Garland. We have our old Garland back, right? We have Mobley taking strides offensively, just being overall more aggressive. We've changed the philosophy of this team. It's not just watch Donovan Mitchell do what he does and then everybody else, try and pitch in when you can. It's a collective group effort, right? And this is a team that I think because of that is going to be able to contend in the playoffs. Now, will they win it? We'll talk about that in a second, but I think they're going to be a really, really good regular season team. And in the playoffs, they're going to be hard out in a 7-game series. But they're 36 and 9, so they've already matched the wins of last year's team at the midseason mark. And they're number one team in the Eastern Conference. And this is a team that I think will probably be 44 and let's say 11 right at the midseason mark. So again, big improvement from last season. Now, this isn't an award necessarily, but these are more so predictions from myself hey, it's the midseason mark. Let me put my stake in the ground, and it's going to be a boring stake. It's going to be the biggest stake, let's just say that, where the fact that I want to predict the finals, right? So looking at the landscape now, looking at all the injuries, the projections, what is the team I think that's going to come out of the East and the Western Conference? In the Eastern Conference, I'm going to be boring, man. I think it's the Boston Celtics. As much as I would love to see my Cavaliers or the New York Knicks make this run, get over the top and make that finals push, I just think that Boston, they just know that despite Derek White even having a down season, they're still winning at a crazy rate. They're still top 2 in the Eastern Conference, and it feels like they've taken their foot off the gas this season. They're just such a dangerous team. Nobody can match up with them as starting 5 or starting 5. And they just have that mentality. I think right now they know they're on cruise control. When it comes to a 7-game series, it's hard to imagine any team can beat them when, again, everybody's healthy for the Boston Celtics. Last year they did it without a fully healthy team. Imagine when KP is healthy, Kristaps, for an entire playoff run. They're going to get even scarier, I think. Now, in the Western Conference, I think this team is going to finish with the 1 seed, and I think it's the boring answer, but it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think this is a year where, just like in the NFL, the two teams that are the healthiest and they are the best rosters, if they're healthy, they're going to make it to the big dance. And I think in the NFL, we saw that with the Eagles and the Chiefs, 2 most talented rosters that were healthy. They made it to the big dance. In the NBA, it's the same thing. I think we get this star-studded matchup that everybody's kind of been wanting to see. I think Shea and them, they got their playoff experience last year. They know what it takes to win at that level now, and I think they can make that push this year. Now, for the Thunder, I think it's a little bit trickier. Of course, you got to run into Jokic. You got to run into Ant, who that team hasn't been great, but he's a historically great playoff performer. And then, of course, you still got 77 back in the mix. The team you lost to last year, they're going to be healthy after the All-Star break. And as long as they can stay that way, that team's only gotten better from last year, bringing in a guy like Klay Thompson, even though they tend to not use him on certain nights. But the Mavericks have the defense, right, to match up with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And nobody in this planet can guard Luka Doncic. An off night for him is a 25-point triple-double. He's going to be back in a lineup, not to mention Kyrie is back in the mix. I think it comes down to the Mavericks or the Thunder yet again in this Western Conference, and I'm excited to see round 2 of that if everybody's healthy going into a 7-game series. But as of right now, I think this is the finals, and I think Boston goes back-to-back. all that spiel for really nothing, right? But again, sometimes 2 plus 2 equals 4, and we don't need to overcomplicate things here in the sports world because things already get, I guess, blown out of proportion because of just the general media. But that was episode 247, my NBA Midseason Awards. Again, let me know down in the comments what you think. Who is your pick for this award or that award, right? Now, I didn't include clutch player because, again, I think we're going to see some of those bigger moments come down the second half of the season. But let me know in the comments, again, your thoughts about the video, your predictions, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and get out of here.